Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 25 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Digital Federal Credit Union, but you know them better as DCU. DCU employs a people-helping-people ideology, both through their dedicated staff and providing services and support that help their members and make a difference in the community. It's what they're known for. With the holiday season upon us, so is the season of giving back. And giving back can take place in so many ways, including donating time and resources or money. DCU for Kids, the credit union's nonprofit charitable foundation, does just that, while striving to improve the quality of life for children in need, including funding support services, enrichment and development activities, mentoring and educational programs, as well as medical research and scholarships. Their impact can be felt throughout DCU's branch communities in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and beyond. And since 2005, DCU for Kids has made charitable donations that total more than $18.4 million. So if you would like to learn more about DCU for Kids and the impact they have in the community, just visit dcuforkids.org. The DCU family is grateful for all of those making a difference and wishes me, Mistress Carrie, and my listeners and your loved ones a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Aw, DCU. Right back at you, baby. This episode of the podcast is also sponsored by Latini Creative Solutions. With over 20 years of experience in design, print, and marketing, specializing in creative solutions that capture your voice and deliver your message. From supporting and energizing your already established brand to developing your company's identity and marketing campaigns, Latini Creative Solutions provides design that is thoughtful, focused, and creatively executed. And I can tell you firsthand, their work is amazing. They have helped me so much since the launch of Cocktails in the War Room, the Mistress Carrie podcast, my social media pages, and mistresscarrie.com. To find out more, log on to latinicreative.com. Now, I want to take this time to welcome Brian, Tony, Heather, and Maria, the newest recipients of the Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass on Patreon, which makes a fantastic gift around the holidays. When you're trying to figure out what you can get someone that you might not be able to see this holiday season, and somebody that basically has everything, give them more Mistress Carrie in their life. A Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass on Patreon gives you exactly that, a backstage pass look into everything that's going on with me. You get exclusive photos, blogs, live streams, inside info on the podcast in the War Room, and now discounted merchandise in the online store at mistresscarrie.com. So just go to patreon.com/mistresscarrie and get yourself a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass. Okay, I was so excited about this episode of the podcast. I have known Scruffy Wallace for years, and you probably know him because he played the bagpipes in the Dropkick Murphys for years. But I bet there's a lot about Scruffy that you didn't know, like he's a decorated combat veteran from the Canadian Army, or that he has a new band called the Shadows of Boston coming in 2021. If you love all things Boston, if you love the bagpipes, if you support the military, then you are going to love this episode of the podcast. Scruffy and I have done so many things together over the years, including volunteering for numerous veteran and military charities. And just a few months ago, he even played the bagpipes at my wedding. I'm so excited for you to get to know Scruffy the way that I know Scruffy, and for you to hear all about his new band, the Shadows of Boston. He sat down in his own war room, his at-home bar that he calls the Pipe and Whistle, with one of his fellow band members, Denny Upton, who also plays the bagpipes. So allow me to introduce you to Scruffy Wallace and Denny Upton from the Shadows of Boston.
Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely, pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
This is Marilyn Manson, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie. Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
What's going on, my man?
Your man or your woman?
My ma'am, I said, my ma'am.
Oh, your ma'am. How are you?
That crazy seal in New York. It's ma'am. It's ma'am.
What's going on?
Not a lot. How are you?
I'm really good. It's nice to see your face.
It's always a pleasure to see you. Always.
You are so clean shaven.
I had to work yesterday, so.
Yeah, me too.
They call me Smoothie now, not Scruffy anymore.
Smoothie, not Scruffy. So the first thing I want you to do is tell me who's hanging out with you, because you're in your bar, right?
We are in the legendary Pipe and Whistle, Dorchester, Massachusetts. This is my big boy, Denny Upton. He's a musician extraordinaire and the latest and best addition to Shadows of Boston. And then over in the corner, hiding, that's our bass guitarist, Eric Meany.
How are ya?
The Meanster.
How are ya?
And then that's it. Now, what are you up to? How's everything going? All right?
Everything is going really well. I mean, you know, as people that have listened to every episode of the podcast know, I apologize when I repeat myself, but, you know, I was unemployed and in crisis before it was cool with coronavirus. I mean, the radio station going off the air and all of that stuff. You know, that all kind of happened a few weeks before coronavirus really hit. So I kind of had a head start on having my life turned on its ass. And that head start was a little helpful.
Hey, you know what? You're always going to land. You're like a bad penny. You're always going to turn up. You know what I mean? You're going to always land on your feet. You're the mistress. Of course you're going to land on your feet.
Oh, thank you. It's actually been really good. It's, you know, once I kind of made the decision, right, to take control of my own destiny and start my company and launch the podcast and Cocktails in the War Room and all of that, it was like, okay, it's all about it's mental, right? Like you have to mentally get yourself to the point where you're going to make that decision. And then once you commit and you just drive forward. And nobody could have expected what we've been dealing with, you know, since March when it comes to the coronavirus. It's unprecedented. So, you know, now everyone's in the same boat because we're all experiencing something that none of us have ever lived through before.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like a lot of depression and, you know, abuse system, alcohol and drugs are coming and making a really ugly surge, I guess you can, especially with the silly season right around the corner. It's kind of hard. I know everyone's really struggling, and it kind of, it's heartbreaking. You know, a lot of even close friends are having problems with it, and, you know, with the unemployment and not working, and you know, so I think everyone's just looking for a glimmer of hope.
It's been an exercise in, you know, your own mental toughness and making decisions every day that, even if they're a selfish decision and you feel selfish doing it, but making decisions that you go, this is just what's best for me right now. And that has to be okay for people to make those decisions, say, well, this is what I need right now. And, you know, I think we're all going to come out of this, and we, you know, it's come up on the podcast so many times. We have a real opportunity to come out of this better people than we were when we went in if we choose to put the effort in.
I hear this term, the Great Reset, and I think individually that's what it's become, is a good chance for introspective reflection and seeing how you can become a better person and changing things that maybe you were so caught up in the rat race with that you didn't have time to change yourself because it's going to take a little bit longer. So I think now this has been a chance for all of us to kind of kick back and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe that part of my life is kind of egregious and I don't really agree with that part of myself. Now I have time to fix it and really get down to work on it. And sometimes it's an ugly thing and sometimes it's a great thing, but I think that it's in its own right, it's been a curse and a blessing. So hopefully, people will just keep holding on and every day just fighting the battle, like you said, and look for those little joys every day instead of concentrating on the negative, looking at it in this more of a positive light.
Silver lining is a lot of good music's going to come out of it, too. Absolutely. A lot of people have been writing music.
Yep.
I know for myself, wanting to control what you can control, right? Because so much of your life is out of control. So I know for me, I've been focusing on all of those little projects around the house that I always said I didn't have time to do. And getting myself financially more organized and trying to just better myself in that way. And then one of the other things that I've been really trying to focus on is really making a conscious effort to reach out to the people that I care about, focusing on really good friendships. And one thing that I pay attention to every day is I've really been trying to make sure that I tell the people I love that I love them more often, because I know how much that's meant to me since February when AAF went off the air, and how much it's meant to have people telling me, we love you, we're here for you, it's going to be okay. And so I really make a conscious effort every day to do that in return, and it makes me feel better to have the people that I care about know how much I care about them. And it's a little thing. It's a simple thing.
And I was just about to say, it's always just the littlest things, too, because you never know when someone is, really fighting the fight that day, and then you come along and say, I really cherish you, and I really love your friendship, and thank you so much. I mean, that could just take them from the bottom of the barrel right to the top, and it's not, like you said, it's not that hard to do, to kind of reinforce that positivity with people, especially when people are struggling,
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I know how much it helped me. So knowing how much it helped me, it's like, okay, that's what I'm going to focus on. And, but everybody is having those difficulties, and the isolation part of this thing has been, the hardest part for me. And I'm sure the hardest part for you as a performer, as someone that is always playing shows and out at shows and supporting musicians and playing music yourself. This is the longest I've gone without going to a concert since I was 13 years old.
It's the biggest thing we're looking forward to is getting back on stage and going to shows, being part of the scene again and just enjoying live music, because it's just the best thing in the world, so.
Yep.
Well, one of the things that happened this year, before we start talking about you and the band and everything, it seemed at the beginning of this year that if you had told me I would have gotten married, I would have been like, shut up. Are you on drugs? And towards the end of August, I got married. And one of the gifts that my husband and I received was you playing the bagpipes at the wedding.
I was honored to be
there.
And
that meant the world, and having you there on 9 days' notice. We got engaged and married 9 days later. But having you there on such short notice to celebrate with us in this COVID, strange, everybody spread out outside, trying to be hand sanitizer wedding that we had to have, it really meant a lot. So thank you.
I was honored to be there. I've known you many years, and I've always loved talking with you and hanging out with you and, being a pain in your ass sort of thing. And I love your husband. He's a brother and a really good friend, and I wouldn't have missed it for the world. No virus, nothing would have stopped me from being out there.
Well, it turned out to be a beautiful day.
Oh, awesome.
It's one of the highlights of my year, which, there haven't been too many. So to have something be so amazing, it really kind of helped, end the summer on a high note.
And on another high note, are you wearing glasses in a tribute to Ricky Vaughn from... Yes, you are. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, right.
Wild thing. I just noticed the skull and bones. That's awesome.
Right there.
A gift from my aforementioned husband.
That's awesome. Of course, he's always got the best gifts, that guy.
Well, can I just ask on a personal note before we get down to brass tacks, what is it with you guys and chicks wearing glasses?
It's hot.
Yeah.
Librarians are hot. You got your hair up in a bun. You got the glasses. Everything's the $1 million smile. I mean, what's not to love, you know?
My wife has glasses.
I never understood what it is about guys that love chicks with glasses. It's crazy.
I don't know. It's sexy. I think it is.
Yeah. Carrie, we're just grabbing some liquid refreshment. Would you like one?
Oh, sure. Are we going to, to pull the curtain back a little bit. Oof, you guys are drinking already.
Champagne bottles.
Last night, I was on my friend's podcast, bamboozled.boston, because one of the co-hosts, my friend Sean, turned 50 yesterday. And needless to say, I got in at 4 o'clock this morning, so I'm still drinking my coffee.
The Miller High Life in a champagne bottle.
Yeah.
That's how you know.
Cheers. We're classy.
How classy and fancy the Mistress Carrie podcast is. Exactly. So I want to go back to the beginning for you, because I know the other guys from the band that are with you in the pub right now are originally from here. What a lot of people may or may not realize that know Scruffy Wallace from the Dropkick Murphys or a lot of the other things that you've done is that you're not originally from the U.S.
I am not. I was born in the UK.
So I wanted to go back, if the guys don't mind, and kind of figure out your story and how you ended up in the pipe and whistle drinking the champagne of beers with your new bandmates.
Oh, it's a tale of lost love and romance. No. So
you were born in the UK.
Born in the UK. My mother had met a sailor from the United States. In England in 72, I guess. He was in Vietnam or something. He was on a leave. And then fast forward, we were in Virginia at a place called Dam Neck, Little Creek, Tidewater. I guess it's a big naval base down in outside of Norfolk. And then fast forward out of there, I ended up in Canada in 1982. And then I ended up staying in Canada until I was about 29 when I moved to Boston. And then while I was in Canada, I joined the Army. I was with the PPCLI when we deployed to Yugoslavia in 1992. And then when I came back from the war, I went with the Calgary Highlanders. I was a piper the whole time. I went to the military school of piping in Ottawa. So I did about, just like I said, I was in Canada until I was 29. So I've been in Boston for just over 20 years now. So I've been in Boston longer than I was in Canada. My mother's still there. My brother's still there. A lot of my friends are still there. And I always think of the Rocky Mountains as kind of my home. But I've been in Dorchester now, like I said, about 20 years. I was in South Boston living in our jam spot. And then I moved over here. And then I've been here ever since. And I've been hanging out with all guys from the neighborhood. And I really don't leave. It's kind of like a little island of our own in the neighborhood. So I'm just glad to be a part of it. And I'm blessed to be here where I am in St. Brennan's. So it's a great place for the kids. And it's an awesome neighborhood.
You said a bunch of stuff that I didn't understand.
Well, I was trying to get through because I hate talking about myself.
Well, I know, but we're doing an interview, so you kind of have to talk about yourself. Otherwise, it's going to be a very boring interview.
You can just edit all that out. Fast forward. And here we are in Dorchester.
Yeah. So when you joined the Canadian Army, what unit were you with? What were you doing?
I was with the 3rd Battalion PPCLI. I was a machine gunner. And then after my deployment in 92... I got back in 93, and then I went back to Calgary. So I was posted in Victoria, British Columbia with the 3rd Battalion. And like I said, after the deployment, I got back. I went to the Calgary Highlanders and became a piper, like a regimental piper, pretty much. I did that in Yugoslavia as well, but I was a machine gunner first. over there, and then I got to pipe for different delegates, UN delegates, NATO delegates. So basically, I got off the line once in a while to play the bagpipes, and it was cool because I get showers, and I come back to the platoon house smelling like a rose, and everyone else would be like, "Oh, what the hell, man?"
You can swear.
So, yeah, right.
So, I think that this is going to surprise a lot of people, first of all, that know you as a musician, that you're not just a veteran of the Canadian Army, but you're a combat veteran as well. So tell me about the deployment. Where did you go? What were you doing?
So we landed in Germany, and then we hopped from Germany on train to a place called Darvar. It's in northern Croatia along the Dragovic. And then we made our way from Darvar to Sarajevo during the genocide in 92. We were in Omanovac, Lipik, Gai, Pakrac. There was a bunch of small towns before we got to Sarajevo, and it was basically a three-factored war. It was, Serbians were basically massacring everyone that wasn't Serbian. So we tried to put a kibosh on that, and obviously it didn't really work too well. But once the UN kind of left, NATO came in, and we were able to actually get to work. And that's when the war kind of started getting real. With the UN, it was kind of like peacekeeping was nothing really to keep peace about. It was just basically a fight that we had our hands tied around our backs, that we couldn't, our ROEs, rules of engagement, we were not able to engage the way we wanted to. We weren't able to get after the work the way we were until NATO came in. So the UN was kind of a hindrance more than anything of actually us doing our jobs. But then, like I said, when the UN was out, NATO came in, we were actually able to get to work. So I did about, our time over there was, 13, 14 months of just absolute garbage, I guess. But we kept in high spirits and, had a pint or two along the way.
I think that people assume that you learned the bagpipes as a kid or from family. You actually learned how to play the bagpipes from the military?
No. So I actually started as a bugler, as a trumpeter. I was like 11, I think. And then I wanted to play guitar. My grandmother was like, hey, you know what, if you learn an instrument from home, we'll get you some guitar lessons. So I joined a cadet corps when I was 12 or 13. The Highlanders had a cadet corps. So I joined them and started piping. And then I kind of fell in love with it. It was just really cool and unique. And then honestly, when I was younger, it was like, oh, I get to wear a kilt, and all the girls love that. So it kind of kept me in that direction. And then, honestly, every turn it seemed bagpipes kind of always gave me an interesting road.
They always do.
I know, right? It's kind of cool, So it was always about the music's kind of always drawn me to it, and this being able to play that instrument specifically, it's always been, like I said, it's a kind of unique opportunities, and I never really stopped. So I've been piping now about 35 years, I guess, 34 years, something like that. And every like I said, every turn has always been something cooler, and it just keeps going up and up and up the levels of, wow, this is so awesome. I get to meet this guy because I'm playing the bagpipes. I get to do this because I'm playing the bagpipes, So it's always been about that instrument. It's very cool. I've been very lucky and very blessed.
I think that's one of the differences with the Canadian military and the U.S. military is that the U.S. military has these amazing, fantastic musicians and bands, but you don't hear about them deploying.
This guy right here.
I'm also a piper.
He's a Marine.
And I'm a Marine, and I brought my pipes with me on all my deployments. And we don't have
But as a hobby, though, right? Because we don't have a military pipe band, right?
Yeah. So I would play for, the interesting thing was sometimes I would play for, say, a Mexican guy from East LA who'd never heard the bagpipes in his whole life. And he'd get ready to go out and patrol, and I would play, a set of marches for him. And you'd see it in his face. It was like he just discovered something new, And that right there was a great experience. But it also motivated the men so much, It does something, especially the warriors.
What is it about the bagpipes that brings such an emotional response from people? Because they either charge you up or they bring you to tears.
Yeah. I think it's the high pitch and the low pitch together. The drones are the low, the chanter, which makes the high-pitched sound. Together, it's a strange sound that there's really nothing like it.
And Europe wasn't conquered by no damn French horn.
Yeah.
But the Canadian Army, you can be deployed and be, like you were talking about, like part of your deployment, part of what you did in the military was play the bagpipes.
So
we military.
like back home, it's like we have split MOS, unlike down here where you get an MOS and that's it, pretty much.
Say what MOS is for people that are listening that don't know what that is.
So MOS is basically your occupational number. So I was in the infantry, so 11 Bravo is mine, or 011, 031. Those are infantry MOS. And then 871 is a musician's title, piper specific. So in Canada, there are regimental pipers, which I was for the battalion, for the Patricias. And then when I went back to the Highlanders, there's a full pipe band. So I was in the Patricias, I was alone with the infantry regiment. And then in Calgary, with the Calgary Highlanders, they have a pipe band. So I was lucky, though, because that's split MOS, 031 and 871. So infantry, machine gun, and then piper.
It's just fascinating that you could get deployed as a machine gunner and be ordered by the military to bring your musical instrument.
And I was ordered to bring my bagpipes. And like I said, when we'd have ramp services for guys who, lost their lives, we would be out on the airfield playing the ramp service. And so you're not out there in a kilt. Obviously, you're out there in your scrubs, playing the service. So I would get taken out of the platoon house and then go back to the airfield and play the service. And then I'd get an 8-hour leave to go to the rear base and get smokes and beer and bring shit back to the platoon house for everybody. So it was kind of a bonus to be able to leave. Obviously, not piping people into the planes was awesome, but
I enjoyed the same opportunities too. I got to play a lot of funerals, and I got to come out of the wire for a little while and go to the rear and play, and then come back. It was a good 2-day vacation.
Yeah, basically. So it's a nice break.
Hot chow.
Yeah, showers, abolition trailers. Yeah, a little bit of whiskey.
A little whiskey and a Listerine bottle.
How do you guys? I've always wondered this because unfortunately over the years I've had to attend more military funerals than, and firefighter funerals, police officer funerals than I care to even try to count. And what I'm always struck with is the honor guards and the bagpipers' ability to be able to hold themselves together in a moment where no one else is able to do that, but you guys can do that. How?
You get in a certain mindset.
Yeah, and it's also, you got to think too, if I always try to think of it, if it was my family, and if it was someone that I truly loved and cared about in the box, how I would want to remember that day. And I know that if I heard the pipes, I always find comfort in the fact knowing that we help people through their grievement, their most shitty day. It's always, I've always had phone calls of people who thank me after the fact, year after, and they the only thing I remember about that day is the pipes. And that gives us comfort, knowing that we're able to help people through that.
It's a great honor. I won't say I enjoy it, but it's a real honor.
Yeah,
really, it is.
I don't think anyone would enjoy that, but it's definitely nice to be able to help people.
My regiment lost 72 Marines, and I played a lot of funerals, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and back in Hawaii.
Who were you deployed with?
3-3, 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines. I was a sniper. They called me the Sniper Piper.
That's a shirt right there. If I ever heard one, the Sniper Piper.
If you don't have that website registered before this podcast comes out, you need to register that or someone's going to take it away from you.
It's trademarked and copyright on the Mrs. Carrie Show.
Yeah. When you're learning how to play the bagpipes, from the first time you pick them up until the time that you can actually play a song and it doesn't sound like you're drowning a half a dozen cats in a pillowcase, how long does it take before it actually starts to sound good? Because there's nothing worse than bad bagpipe playing.
Oh, well, I know.
I don't know. I mean, it's different for everyone, I guess. So we start on a thing called a chanter. It's a long plastic piece that kind of mimics the real chanter on the pipes. Usually learning the basics of movements on the fingers 6 months to 8 months. And then once you start on just blowing the bag with a chanter, no drones. And then 1 drone, then 2 drones, then all 3 drones and chanters. So, I mean, uptime, probably, a year? But doing a year and a year and a half, maybe 2 years. Yeah. Before you're actually playing on a full set and actually getting through songs without sounding like you're drowning cats.
I've taught a lot of people, and it's some people are great in a year and a half, and then some people after 10 years, they still suck. So, I mean, it depends on the individual.
Everybody's seen the bagpipes, obviously, but if somebody that doesn't know how to play them, that doesn't understand some of the terms that you're using, if you were going to explain to me in very basic terms what the different pieces are so that people listening to the podcast can kind of understand what a chanter is or what the drones are, like, go through that for me so we can understand, because I'm getting lost, so I know other people are going to get lost.
So I guess the central part would be the bag, and there's 3 pipes that come out of the bag.
Can you grab that little set of pipes?
And out of those 3 pipes, there's 2 pipes that are called the tenor, and those make the higher sound of the drone.
Here, we can display with illustrations.
Yeah, you can show me, but
I just pulled off the wall.
But the guys that are listening to the podcast can't see it, so.
Yeah. Well, then never mind. So these are drones.
Yeah.
This is a blow stick. So you blow your air into here, right?
I know about the blow stick part, Scruffy.
Mm-hmm. Hey-o. So you fill up the bag with the blow stick. Man, this is starting to sound like a Pornhub.
I know. It always does when you try and explain it. You know?
So you squeeze the bag while you're blowing on the blow stick, and that, god damn, and that makes sound out of the chanter. This thing here.
Which is the thing that looks like the flute or like whatever it is that your
It's the thing you see the guys using their fingers on.
Okay.
And then these 3 things, you have the long stick is called the bass drone. And then the 2 smaller sticks are called the tenor drones. There's 2 of them. So these 3 make that vacuum cleaner sound. And while you're playing the vacuum cleaner, you squeeze the bag, and this sound comes out of this. So it has 9 notes. I think it's the only instrument in the world that has a 9-note scale. It's a Mixolydian scale. It's 9 notes. Usually scales are 8 notes. This one is low G plus 1. So it's that's it. Bag, blow stick, chanter, drone, drone, drone.
So it's like you're playing 2 instruments simultaneously, because you're the droning noises that you're getting from squeezing the bag, that's one set of notes and basically its own kind of instrument. And then there's the high-pitched notes that you're playing with your fingers. So you're squeezing to get the low notes and blowing to get the high notes, and you're doing that simultaneously. It sounds very complicated.
Yeah,
it probably sounds more complicated than it really is. When you it's called striking the bag.
Like doing this.
Yeah, it's sort of like when the air starts to flow, the drones just automatically play on their own. So you're concentrated on keeping those steady blowing, steady sound, and then the fingering. I'm not probably sounding like I'm talking Chinese right now, but.
No, you're doing a good job of explaining it.
All right, it's really not that complicated. It's after. I mean, it is complicated, but it's not when you know the instrument. It's you strike up. It makes the sound on its own, and then you just play the notes on the chanter.
It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, once you know how to do it, it's yeah. I wasn't say easy, but it's easier.
It's temperamental too.
Very temperamental.
Yeah. It's all reeds on the inside.
4 reeds.
4 reeds.
So I grew up in the band in school playing the clarinet, which there was only one.
It was a single-sided reed, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So now that you know single-side, so a bagpipe chanter is a double-sided reed, like an oboe.
Okay.
So it's 2. And then you have a bass drone reed, and each tenor drone has a reed. So that's 4 reeds, one of them double-sided, and then 3 single. So it's a lot of air. That's why there's so much air. You see guys look like their heads are going to explode when they're playing the pipes. Is because there's a lot of wind. Yeah. A lot of, you got to have a very good set of lungs, a good diaphragm to be able to push the air into, and then to keep it steady. And like you said, going back to what you said about people and what Benny said about people sounding like shit after 10 years, is because they kind of don't learn how to control that breathing and squeezing, and
it's unsteady.
Yeah, it's a very fine balance of pressure on your arm, pressure from your lungs, squeezing the whole thing. It's like
and the two sides of the reed, they have to vibrate 480 times a second to get the perfect note, the perfect B flat. So that's how it works. That's how it makes the sound. So when the air goes through, it just goes like this, like a hummingbird, kind of faster than you could even see. And that's what makes the sound that you hear when you hear it.
Hit one more wrong note and we'll all be flat. Yeah. Come on, tell me that movie reference.
Oh my God.
Goonies. Love that.
Such a good movie. One of the things that is happening with kids in school, and because you have kids, is that if they're learning from home, this was a problem even before coronavirus, that the music programs in school have been suffering for years. And now that kids are home and even if they have a music program, they can't really take part in it because of the coronavirus. Can you talk to me on how important it was growing up to have access to music and to be able to focus something into learning how to play a musical instrument? Like, I loved it growing up, but I never was good at it. And what I've learned over the years in talking to all the musicians I'm fortunate enough to talk to, I don't have the part of the brain I have the part of my brain. It just is not very smart. But the same part of the brain that controls language and math also controls musical ability. And that part of my brain is not the strongest out of everything. And so talk to me, when you do have that ability, how important it was growing up that you had the ability to focus that into music, because it obviously shaped your future, having access to that.
I'm actually giving lessons in about an hour and a half to two kids who I've been teaching the bagpipes to. They're 9 years old, and Liam and Colin, and they're doing great. I've been teaching them for about 6 months, and my children, Michael and Brianna, play fiddle and accordion. And I grew up in a musical household. My grandmother was a professional piano player, and like you said, it has shaped my life. But honestly, when I was a kid, I didn't like practicing. I didn't like it at all. I started playing accordion when I was about 11 or 12. And not far from my house was a bar called the Greenbrier in Brighton. And that's where I learned from Larry Reynolds and all the old Irish, the Marshall, all those guys. And it was just, I don't know, it's once you get past like the hard part when you're learning, it's like you come into this whole world that can give you more enjoyment than you could ever imagine in your whole life. And it you can't stop doing it. And that's what it's been like for me, And I try and tell my kids that. My son plays accordion, and he sticks with it, and he plays a Catholic memorial in the band over there. My daughter, she's kind of put the fiddle down because she doesn't like it, but hopefully she'll pick it up again. But I just tell them it's a gift. I'm giving you a gift. I know it's hard now, but I'm giving you a gift. And that's what I was told when I was learning to play when I was young. And I play a couple different instruments, but I can just I have this like hunger, this curiosity for like new music constantly. Like playing the accordion, I love Buckwheat Zydeco. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's awesome. Like Cajun music, Italian music, all accordion music. Of course, Irish music.
And Weird Al, obviously.
Oh yeah, I saw Weird Al last year with my son.
When concerts were a real thing.
Yeah, we sat in the front row.
Did all of you guys come from musical families?
I didn't come from a musical family. My family was really poor. I was raised by a single mom, so I got into music because it was the one thing that I could always go to that was familiar, and it was very comforting. I've given it to my kids as well, like Benny. My oldest boy Callum and my youngest boy Logan. Callum was he played violin at St. Brennan in the school band, and then he kind of stopped doing that. So I have them on whistles, and my youngest boy's a savage. He I think he's gonna be either a drummer or a defenseman. We haven't figured out which one yet, but
maybe both.
Yeah, he likes to pound on stuff and make noises, and then he'll carry around one of my tin whistles and just play a high A like nonstop for an hour, and I'm like, it sounds great, buddy. Like I don't want to pull my eyes out right now or my eardrums, but you know.
That's the thing. It's years of listening to like.
I don't know how my mother did it. Like it was, trapped in a basement, and me squeezing the agony bag for 4 hours a day. You know, but I think the programs now at school, I wish that they were given more money because it's such an important thing for kids to learn to kind of express their. Sometimes I notice even with my own boys that sometimes they get frustrated because they can't express themselves the way they want. And I think music and art are a very great way for children to be able to do that.
Yeah. And
I think that if the way that things go now, that they've been defunding music programs, art programs, I think it's a shame, honestly, because a lot of young kids don't really have anything else except music or art, and it's unfortunate that they're having that also taken away from them. I think it's a shame.
It's a great combination of skills too, like you said, math.
Absolutely.
It also teaches you discipline.
Yep.
Because you have to you don't want to practice, but you have to practice.
Also teaches you how to work with other people.
Exactly. You know, work with other people.
You know, being in a band is a part of a moving machine. It's a cog, and you know, you're one cog in the machine, and it teaches you how to rely on other people and how to be a part of something that's greater than yourself. I mean, it's just all around. It's just a great.
Yeah. You know, like sports, you know, it's in your formative years, it's probably the best thing for a kid to do. And unfortunately, you know, nowadays you don't see as many kids playing, you know, music instruments because of technology.
They got the iPads and the iPhones,
and everything else. But we try and keep the traditions alive in my household, at least.
Yeah, same with my household.
And you know,
we still do the the Irish hit parade on. You know, Saturdays and Sunday after Mass, we come home and do a fry up.
I have rackets in my parlor all the time.
Yep.
You guys are all invited.
nice crack.
Yeah.
When you, Scruffy, when you came to the United States finally, when you were 29, I think a lot of people listening to this podcast know the name Scruffy Wallace because of the Dropkick Murphys. And the time that you spent with the Dropkicks, that era of the band, you got to do some of the craziest things that you probably never could have imagined. And I know for me, in 2011, when the band played Fenway, you guys let me introduce you on stage from Afghanistan with the guys that I was embedded with. Can you talk now, looking back at your time in the Dropkicks, and look at some of the things that you got to do in the band that are your most fond memories and the things that you just go, I can't believe I got to do that?
I mean, pretty much every day was like that for me. You know, I was always a very firm believer in the music. You know, I lived in a really small jam spot in South Boston for like 2 years because I believed in it so much. I lived off like probably $4 or $5 a day. You know, we weren't making a lot of money at the start of the thing. And it was, every day was just an amazing experience. I mean, there were days where obviously everyone's frustrated and, you know, you miss your girl or your kids or whatever. But in the end, it was, there's so many, like, I went to Moscow. I stood in Red Square, you know, looking at St. Basil's Cathedral, just being like, Jesus Christ, I remember when those tanks were rolling through with the nuclear missiles. That's what I remember when I was a kid. And now I'm standing here because I'm playing music. You know, we were in Japan. We flew from Boston to San Francisco to Tokyo. We got on a bus, drove from Narita, which is the airport outside Tokyo, to Mount Fuji. We played Fuji Rock. We were there for like 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. We played the show. We got back on the bus, went back to the airport, and then flew home again. We were in the air longer than we were on the road, on the ground. One show. So, I mean, you know, Australia, there's just so many amazing things. I hung out, one night I got to hang out with Mr. Smith from The Cure, Robert Smith, an absolute gentleman. And probably one of my fondest memories. We were playing a festival in France, and it was pouring rain. Me and James Lynch were sitting at a little picnic table around in the backstage area, which was surrounded by these like little shacks. and him and I were talking, and then I look up from the table, and there's Robert Smith. Now, I wasn't a huge Cure guy.
See, my inner goth girl
right now is like
losing it. Yeah.
So he come over and like I said, James had just stood up, and then he comes over and he says in this real frail, sort of gentle English brogue sort of thing, do you mind if I sit down? I'm like, you're fucking Robert Smith. You could probably sit on my lap if you wanted to. I'm not going to be upset. So he sat down and we talked for probably an hour, and just such a humble. But I'm like, you're Robert Smith, dude. Like, you're Robert Smith, and you're right here talking to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is amazing. You know, I got to hang out with Robert Plant. You know, a huge influence in my life. Led Zeppelin, awesome. We opened for Slayer, which is probably that is my favorite band. Everyone who knows me knows that Slayer is my favorite band. When I was in war, I would listen to South of Heaven and Rain and Blood nonstop. Like, that was Patrol.
Me too.
You know, it's funny, right? So, you know, I got to talk to Tom, and I became friends with Carrie, and, you know, there's so many amazing things. We played Fenway in 04. You know, we helped break the curse, allegedly. 07.
Oh, you did. You guys can take credit.
Hey, well, if Stephen King wrote about it in a book, then goddamn it, I'm going to buy that. You know what I mean? So they gave us, the Red Sox ended up giving us World Series rings. You know, what other band in the world can say that they got a World Series ring from the Boston Red Sox? So, you know, we got to hang out with all the Bruins, or, you know, friends of mine, Milan Lucic and Andrew Ferentz and Patrice Bergeron. And, you know, I got to do all that because of the music. You know, and it was during that time, like you said, we were thanked by Martin Scorsese on stage after The Departed. He thanked us. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, there's just so many things that were awesome. And I look back on them very fondly. What the hell was that? Oh, it was my pistol. My Glock just fell off my table. My dog knocked it over.
Oh, great.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's unloaded. Don't worry about it.
If I had a World Series ring, I would wear it every day. What do you do with yours?
It's in a safe.
He just showed it to me.
It's in a safe.
Yeah,
I don't take
platinum with diamond.
I don't take it out.
Just, are you afraid to like leave it on the bar somewhere in Dorchester?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The radio station, when I was at AAF, we were owned by the same company that owned WEEI that does the Red Sox games. And when they won, WEEI got a ring. And as a benefit to all of the employees in the company, everyone got to sign the ring out for a day. And you got to wear it all day, and you got to take it home, and you got it for 24 hours, and then you got to bring it back. I chose to take the ring out drinking in Boston.
And you had to pay for it if you lost it, right?
Yikes.
Oh, yeah. It was, yeah. I did not pay for one drink all night because I was wearing a World Series ring. And I was like, this is as close as I will ever get to being Big Papi. This is as close as I'm ever going to get. And it was so amazing to wear that ring because the attention, people see it from across the room. Because, you know, in 04, that was the one. And everybody was like, can I see it? Can I touch it? Can I look at it? Can I just take a picture of it?
I was overseas. I missed it.
Anytime you want to take mine out, Carrie, you're welcome. You can have it anytime you want. You might be onto something with the free drinks, so I like that idea. Be like, oh, you want a picture? Buy me a drink.
It was unbelievable.
I ended up giving Papi a kilt, actually, in that series. Him and Dustin Pedroia. He has a kilt that he would wear. So I presented it to him on stage right after they won that. And then I guess every year afterwards, he wore it in Florida during practices and stuff. So it's kind of funny, kind of cool. You said Papi, a little side note there. It's kind of funny.
In all the guys that you've met with the Sox and stuff, seriously, is there anybody that's nicer? I've never met him, but he just seems like one of the nicest people on the planet.
And he's so genuine, and he genuinely cares about everything. Like when, you know, after the horrible things that happened in 13 down on Boylston Street that we won't even discuss. When he came out on the field and said what he said about this being our fucking city, I know that came from a real, genuine spot in his heart. And like you said, he's such a humble and gentle person. and a great guy to hang out with too. He loves to joke around and make fun of stuff. And great guy, all around great guy.
I loved it when he said that because I'm actually a Boston firefighter, and I was one of the first companies on scene at the bombing, and that was a very disturbing day. But when he said that, and he swore on television, and my kids heard it, and I was like, it's okay. They smiled.
The FCC forgave him.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Well, Scruffy, you and him have something in common, and the rest of the guys in the band that are with you, I'm curious what your answer is. What is it about Boston that when you're not from here, like you're not, or like Big Papi isn't, but you come here and it becomes part of you? And I'm curious to your answer because the guys that are with you grew up there. And so what is it about Boston that makes you so passionate about becoming part of the city? Because I don't think every city is like that.
No, I it's funny. I think when I moved here, it was, I was elated and I was terrified because, I was going into the Murphys, and I know because of the Murphys, it's like, it's part and parcel. Like, you have to know everything about the city because this is what you're coming into. So I believe that the passion of the city and the passion of the people that are from here, it's really easy to kind of get drawn into that, and the guys that I hang out with, the people in Dorchester, it's funny because, like I said, I've only been here, 20 years, and I can't see I wouldn't want to live anywhere else besides this part of the city because for me, this is the best part of the city because all my friends are here, all the people that I rely on and love to death. They showed me what the meaning of true brotherhood is. And I think once you understand that's what Boston is, then that's how you're able to become a part of it. It's like guys have like the OFD stickers, right? On their cars and stuff from the neighborhood. I have a no FD sticker. I'm not originally from Dorchester, but a good friend of mine, Eddie Laurenti, he's like, yeah, you're not originally from here, but you're a dot rat through and through. And it's kind of like getting a pass. I've been accepted as one of them because I've been here for so long, and it's about the make of your person. It's not about where you're from. It's about what you do and who you are. And I think finding a way to contribute more in the scene with music and helping, with the charities and doing the work. It's not about what you say, it's about what you do. And I think that's what Boston is. It's a blue collar working town, and I think loyalty and brotherhood are two factors that I'm very, very familiar with, and it's easy to kind of get in with that, So for myself as an outsider, I didn't feel like that anymore because I've been here for so long, and now it just seems like this is my home, So I guess that's the long and short of it. It's easy to get pulled into it because of what it is, and the people here make it like that. I know that everyone seems brash at first, like people are like, oh, people from Boston, they're so this and that, but it's like, well, not really. You just haven't been there long enough to understand what.
We're very unaccepting at first,
right?
That's a tradition that goes back generations.
I love the fact that even at Red Sox games, if you're playing shitty, you're going to get booed.
Oh yeah, are you kidding me? When Wade Boggs went to the Yankees, fuck him, But we used to love him. No, fuck him.
Well, one of the things that's different for me now is that when I was on the air at WAF, your audience is as far as people can hear the transmitter. Then the internet started streaming, and so people that used to live in Boston were able to listen on the internet if they wanted to keep in touch with home. Now the Mistress Carrie podcast has allowed the audience to grow not only nationwide, but at last check, there's 95 countries that are listening to the podcast now. And I got the nickname the baddest bitch in Boston, a couple decades ago. I bring it up because outside of Massachusetts or New England, when someone asks me where I'm from, I say Boston. But talking to you guys, being the girl from the suburbs, I can't say that I'm from Boston because I'm not.
Yes, you are. Don't lie.
Well, I mean, I went to school in Boston. I worked in Boston, but there is, even within our own state, this rivalry between guys like you that grew up in the city and work and live in the city and people like me that grew up in the suburbs and tell people we're from Boston when we're not.
Well, when you're in like California, for instance, and someone asks you where you're from, you say Boston, because they're not going to know where Norwood or Braintree is or wherever, or like Newton or something like that. But like, I went to an Angels game in Anaheim about 25 years ago. I was stationed in Camp Pendleton, California. And this is the first time I realized how they call it, Red Sox Nation? Where there's people from Boston everywhere you go. If you're in Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, wherever. So I went to this Anaheim Angels game, and I walk in, and I start seeing Red Sox hats everywhere. So the game starts, and they start announcing everybody, and I realize there's more Red Sox fans than Angels fans. And we're in Anaheim. This is their home. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And that's when I first realized, I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, we really have a presence all over the country, because people, whatever, they move for work or school or whatever and stay out there. But they hang on to that pride of being from Boston more than anything, It's just a point of dignity and pride.
But we even have our own rivalry. Because I've said to people, when I've traveled, they're like, oh, where are you from, Boston? And they're like, what neighborhood? And I'm like, okay, fine, I'm from the suburbs. Because they check you.
Well, it's funny. I've learned that in my neighborhood specific, it's, what part? You're from Dorchester? Where are you from? If they name a street, they're not from Dorchester. If they name a parish,
oh yeah,
then they're from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, it's like, where are you from? St. Brennan's my parish.
Yeah.
St. Mark's, St. Greg's, St. Anne's, so you can know all Pope's Hill, Savin Hill, Dorchester Ave, blah, blah, blah. So it's funny you say the rivalry thing because I know friends of mine who are like, oh, St. Mark's. I'm like, oh, really, St. Mark's? No, St. Brennan's. Yeah, so, yeah.
We're our own worst enemy. We'll pick a rivalry with the neighbor.
Southie is so cool now, but when I was a kid, drug addicts and car thieves, And I didn't want, only St. Patrick's Day was the only time I ever went to Southie. If you saw the Barracuda jackets, you remember those jackets, Barracuda jackets? They were the only kids who wore those jackets. If you saw a group of kids with Barracuda jackets, you're like, oh.
Well, think about growing up, right? I have friends that come in from out of town and they stay at the Liberty Hotel. And when I was in college, we used to go over there and buy hamburgers to throw them to the guys in the jail. And now that jail, exactly. And now that jail is one of the nicest, boutique luxury hotels in the city.
What do they call it? Clink, right? Isn't that what it's called? Or something?
There's Clink, there's Alibi.
Right near the hospital.
But if we had all back in the day bought up some of the land in Southie or on the waterfront.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine how much money we'd all have right now?
We'd be millionaires right now.
Yeah, I know plenty of guys who sold their grandmother's 3-deckers and they're living pretty good right now. They almost don't deserve it, but hey, luck,
One of the other rivalry things, or one of the other differences, is growing up for me in the suburbs, I was the metal kid. Heavy metal was my thing, and that's all I cared about. And back when we were growing up, the music that you listened to, more so I think now, defined who you were. The bands you listened to made a statement about you and about how you were as a person and who you were friends with. And I bring it up because I didn't really develop an understanding or an appreciation for punk rock outside of the Ramones until I was way later in life. And as musicians that are now with your new project, The Shadows of Boston, What is it about that type of music that kind of goes with the neighborhood and where you grew up? And why is it that you grew up around it, but for me, growing up where I grew up, it wasn't a thing?
I was just surrounded by it, you know, as a 14-year-old kid. Bunratty's on Harvard Ave, you know, back in the 80s. You know, Keith Bennett, you know, he was in a band, Wrecking Crew, you know. He was like my idol, you know. I used to go there Sunday matinees. I was 13, 14 years old. You'd pay $3 at the door. They give you a little mark on your hand. And that was my early influence, like introduction to punk. And there was a great scene back then. You know, you had like Eye for an Eye, Said and Done, Wrecking Crew,
Gangrene,
Maelstrom, Gangrene, and Toxic Narcotic.
SSD.
Which I later joined Toxic Narcotic in the 90s after my first enlistment in the Marines. And it was just, I don't know, it was a certain sound, you know? There was like the New York sound, there was the Boston sound. And we kind of had a little bit of a rivalry, but we always played together, you know? But it was, I don't know, it's hard to describe, you know, it's hard to put into words, but, you know, for me, that's my musical influence from a very early age. And Bunratty's was like, you know, I'd get in the trolley on Com Ave. I lived in Cleveland Circle. I'd get in the trolley, and I would just ride down, 10-minute ride, 35 cents, get off, and I'd spend the whole Sunday. But that's where, it was the 80s, so that's where you met up with your friends. That was your social circle. There was no internet. There was no phones. It was pay phones, and it's where it was more about, it wasn't just about music. It was about like an entire social scene, you know? And you'd see your friends from all different parts of the city and the suburbs, and we would all meet there. And it was like, oh, what happened this week? What happened, you know? And that was a huge part of it, really. And we never really fit in with the mainstream. You know, you had skinheads and punks, but it was there was something different about all of us, and we didn't really fit in, but we fit in there on Sunday afternoons, you know. And that was, for me, that's what was so special about it, you know.
I think for me, like, listening to punk was kind of like, you know, so, you know, I grew up as a skateboarder, snowboarder. It was just part of the people that I hung out with. You know, it was always like, our Facebook was, like he said, getting together at the skate park and being like, oh, what bands are you listening to this week? Then you'd read the insert on the cassette tape, if you remember that, when bands would thank other bands, and you'd be like, oh, shit, I got to go check those dudes out. And then you know, you would continually kind of wrap those bands and more and more and more. Punk music was just always an outlet. You know, you go to shows, you beat the shit out of each other, you'd have a fucking great time, you'd laugh and you'd smile and you'd forget about all your worries. Yeah. And it was always at that show, you know, and I think that's the magical thing about being at a live show, is that for 2 hours you get to leave your problems at the door, and everyone's just out there to have fun and take care of each other, and it's such an amazing thing to watch. People I've seen it firsthand, people arm in arm in one moment, loving and swaying back and forth, and then the next moment beating the shit out of each other and then buying each other a beer, you know. Where else can you go besides a live music show where you can see that rift of emotion, and it's an amazing, beautiful thing to be a part of, you know, in any aspect. And I think that's what draws us all to music is
and everybody knows it,
you know. I think that's where it's very special about punk rock, is that it's very honest and it's very open. It's very aggressive, and I think that
it's like, I punched you, but it's nothing personal.
It's nothing personal. You know? It's born of frustration, happens, but you know? We work it out, right? And that's it.
Let's get a beer.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? It's such a guy thing too, because if a girl punched me in the face, I'm not fucking buying her a beer. I'm gonna hold that grudge till she's dead.
I will kick you in the box over and over again.
So I think I ask this question a lot of bands. When you have a level of success, it's hard to walk away from it. And so when you left the Dropkick Murphys, for a while, you weren't really doing anything musically that people would have known about because you were working. So what did you do when you left the Dropkicks? And then how did you end up now putting this new band together, the Shadows of Boston, and kind of moving forward now?
So when I left Dropkicks, I was, as we talked about looking inside and seeing parts of our lives that we kind of need to adjust. I needed some time to kind of get my head around a lot of things that I had become that I didn't really like. I struggled with alcohol. I struggled with drugs. I was on the road 10, 11 months a year. Guilt and depression was a big thing for me. And I kind of had to kick myself in the ass to kind of see where I was headed. And I didn't really like that direction. So I kind of faded away a little bit because I needed to get myself together. And my wife just had our second son, Logan, and I knew that I needed to be around as a father to be a part of that. And sometimes, like I said, through the darkest times that we have, you get to see a little speck of light, and that's what that was for me. It made me put everything into perspective about what was important. And at that point, the only thing that I saw was, I wanted to be on the road and be as fucked up as I could. And I couldn't continue after 13 years of doing that. I couldn't do it anymore. So, I took a couple months off from everything, and then I started the piping business, playing funerals and weddings and that sort of thing. But I never really did anything band-wise. I just kind of, I've been kind of keeping it away because I was scared that if I did it again, that those old demons would come back to haunt me. So now it's been 5 years I left the band, and I think, after a lot of coercion and coaxing from very good friends of mine, it's time to kind of start writing. I mean, I've never stopped writing. So it's now I've got 6 other great guys around me that are pushing and writing and helping with bringing all this music together. And I haven't been this excited about writing and a project for a long, long time. And I think that this band is going to be something special.
I'm very excited about it. So
we got 6 really... Besides myself, we have 6 really great players. We have 4 bagpipers in this band, which is unheard of. So, I mean, Timmy McMasters...
He was my pipe teacher for many years.
I mean, you probably know Big Tim, Al and Herb, and just, like I said, a core of great guys. Blue Bloods, Toxic Narcotic, Dropkicks. There's a lot of bands, Medicine for Tim, Beneath the Stone. Everybody comes from another band. That's why we called the band Shadows of Boston, because we're all from bands that were important in this city at one point. So now it's just we're all having, personally, I'm having fun in writing again, and I don't have to worry about, the being at the airport at 5 o'clock in the morning to fly to Japan or Australia or whatever. It's fun again. I do miss playing on stage, It's that in itself is a drug, It's very addictive, and being out there and I miss it, I love playing, I love performing, I like being on stage and getting through awesome songs. And I think with this band, it's gonna be like that. When we get live shows again, I hope to see everybody out because it's gonna be awesome.
One of the things when you love music, whether you play music like you guys or whether you're just a huge music fan and passionate about it, for a long time it was never talked about the battles with mental illness, depression, addiction. We all knew it was happening for years and years and years. And obviously, as of late, I think really the grunge era really started opening up the conversations about addiction and depression. And the music industry has suffered so many losses to suicide and just addiction issues. And in some ways, as the fans, and I've talked about this before, all of those emotions, everything that the musicians are battling is in the music. And then the consumers of it, the fans, we're literally consuming and enjoying what is, in a lot of cases, the musician's most deeply guarded secrets and their emotions, and we're consuming it as a product. And I bring it up because it keeps coming up in the podcast over and over again. Morgan Rose from Seven Dust and I had an extremely candid conversation last week about him dealing with these demons that you're talking about, depression, suicide, addiction. And I think the fact that you're talking about leaving a band that the perception from a fan or the outside would seem that you were living life like this is the dream to, there you are hanging out with Big Papi and going to Russia and going to Japan. And all the while you were struggling too, to the point where decisions had to be made where you left something that people would think is the dream because you had to make a choice. And I think having this conversation is really important because the perception is that if you get to that level of success in any industry, but in music specifically, that what could possibly be wrong?
Well, and the thing is too is
life
in battling it, and for myself a lot losing that battle. It's so easily accessible in the scene. I remember sitting with Slash and Sorum and Duff. We were playing a show with the Velvet Revolver or the Stone Temple Roses, whatever you want to call them. And I remember seeing what's his nuts? Who's it?
Scott Weiland.
Scott Weiland. We were in these train cars, and again, I was sitting at a table drinking a bottle of Jack and some shit German beer, and I saw Scotty Weiland standing in between the entranceway to his train car, looking like a popsicle stick, and it's so obvious within the scene, but nobody says anything about it, and again, I can't speak to other people's fights or battles or whatever, just my own, and I know that inside it's so easy to attain pretty much anything you want at any time, because people who love the music, love the band, they want to continue to support, and if a guy was like, oh hey, I haven't been able to get my fix. Do you know anybody around here who can help me out? Oh yeah, of course. Because as fucked up as it sounds, that's the muse that is used by people to get the final painting of the picture, and so in writing that shit, it becomes more and more and more, and then eventually guys die of overdoses. I mean, look at Lane.
Road to the bottom.
Look at Lane. Alice in Chains is a perfect example. I was honored and blessed to see them play one time in Spain, and hearing him play on stage and then learning later how shitty he died is because of the heroin, and in honesty, I don't think that music would have been written without it. So in one breath, it's kind of hard to fight the fact that it's used as a way to get stuff out, because musicians don't tend to really talk about stuff.
You put it in the music.
And that's it. It comes out through the music. And unfortunately, sometimes those things are used as the bridge between the thought and the process. And so Lane is a perfect example. Alice in Chains is a phenomenal, unbelievably dark, but beautiful band. And I think the only reason that music was written was because of the heroin. And it's an unfortunate beauty that the ending was what it was. But there was, again, like you said, the people inside this scene don't really talk about stuff. No one wants to talk about the problems we have with the drugs and the alcohol.
Yeah.
It's always there, but we tend to, like you said, write it in the music. And people are just like, as long as he's playing, it's okay. As long as he's on stage making me money, it's okay. So
it's kind of like a form of therapy too, though. I suffered from PTSD for a pretty long time. I still do, I guess you could say. But about 3 years ago, I finally started getting some help for it. I went to the VA, and I finally bit the bullet. Went and saw a psychiatrist and stuff like that, and I started writing a song, and it was basically about all my dead friends who I think about probably every second of every day, but I never talk about to anybody I know. Probably people who would see this would be like, oh really? I'm like, yeah, but they're always in my head, in my heart. And I wrote a song about them, and all of a sudden it was therapeutic. You know, I let it out. You know, and that's one positive thing that can come from it. Like a lot of these sad songs, or you know, songs you write about your hardships, they can be therapeutic. You can turn it into a positive, and that's a silver lining, I guess you could say, about it. So
well, you guys talked about the importance for kids to learn this creative outlet as a way to cope and to be able to channel their feelings and emotions. You guys also are coming from a place where you're combat veterans. And obviously, this is a huge focus of a lot of the work that I do. And again, something that comes up over and over again in the podcast is being able to transition from what you were and what you were expected to do in the military to then be able to come home and be who that person is coming home and function in a completely new role. Can you guys talk about the struggles of your own reintegration, getting out of the military after what you did, and then talk about how important music was, like what you just touched on, how important the music was to help you through that process?
For myself, I call that the war after the war. It's the struggle of coming to terms with what we did and saw over there, and now trying to act like it never happened, like acting like it's all okay. You know, and as a good Catholic boy, I suppress everything and push it down. But then again, therein lies the another beautiful part of the addiction with the drugs and the alcohol, is that all makes it kind of go away, or at least you don't think about it, and so you have to continually drink or whatever to kind of suppress that shit.
Makes it easier
until you can write it out. And you know, for myself, I hang around with guys like Benny, like my buddy Matt Nelson and Scott Roddy, guys that you're very familiar with, Paul, your husband, guys who have done the same shit. You know, that's why we're all so tight, is because we share a common pain. And I think in doing that, it helps us unburden ourselves with it by sharing it with guys that we trust within the community.
Yeah.
Well, for myself anyway. I don't know if I'm.
I mean,
not talking
we're kind of blessed. Like, I'm blessed. I work at a firehouse, Ladder 17, where almost everybody there is a veteran, and a lot of them are combat veterans. So it's like we feel like outsiders when we're in the regular world. You know, like if you go to a restaurant, you sit down with your wife, and you look around, and you realize that like none of these people know anything about me. You know, none of these people have seen anything I've seen. You know, but I can't talk about it. I can't, you can't mention it. So it makes you feel like kind of an outsider. But when you're surrounding yourself with people like yourself, you don't feel like an outsider anymore, you know, and that's comforting. And the thing is I've done a lot of work with Peggy Matthews. I don't know if you know her, but she works with veterans in rural areas all over the country. And the biggest problem we run into is guys in like Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Dakota. They're all alone, you know? So we help them financially, and we try and visit them, and you know, but I'd say in that sense we're fortunate because we're surrounded by a strong veteran community, especially here in Boston. But those guys, they struggle big time because they're alone, you know, because they live in like a rural area. And they know one or two, you know, Marines or veterans and stuff. But it's not easy, though. It's an everyday battle. You struggle with it. You know, you have good days, you have bad days. You know, like the Marine Corps birthday was last week. We've had my platoon, we've had 2 suicides. I still keep in very close touch. I got out in 2007. I still keep in very close touch with all the guys in the platoon. We're very close. We have reunions every year. We go to Montana, we go to Texas. And, you know, the last suicide was it hit me hard, you know? So what was once a very joyous day, the Marine Corps birthday, you know, we all get drunk and fight each other, you know? But this year, it was sad. I got really depressed this year. And I know why, but it was just, it's tough, you know. It never goes away, and I know that until I die, probably I'll always have this, you know, kind of sorrow. But you got to have a positive attitude. Life goes on. It does, you know. And I don't know. I'm not a victim.
Well, the reason why I bring this stuff up, like you brought up sitting in a restaurant, is somebody that's obviously married to a combat veteran, but also someone that is blessed beyond measure to be surrounded by so many in my daily life. I think a lot of people that don't understand, when you bring up, you know, you talk about just going to a restaurant. I know, Scruff, whether I'm hanging around with you or out to dinner with my husband or any of the other guys that I know, we go into the restaurant, I don't sit down until you guys do, because you guys decide where the best sight line is and what your door is, where you're going to exit. So
corner, all exits, back to the wall.
I need to see everything.
So
Everything.
People that don't understand this, and I always ask these questions and point these things out, because the statistics on the percentages of people in the military and veterans in the United States, the disparity between the civilians who have benefited from your service and the actual service members, the percentage is, it's like 97-3. And so I ask these things to point out to people that just don't know that these are things that you do. You know, it's the same thing with like guy friends, right? That they don't understand that when their wife or their girlfriend or their daughter, that she just grows up parking in the parking lot at the supermarket under the lights, that she always checks the back seat of the car before she gets in. Things that guys don't think about, but girls do, because it's just something that you've learned. And when it comes to veterans, the things that you've seen and the experiences that you've had shape how you live your daily life, whether it's a conscious decision or not. Like where you're going to sit in the restaurant and what chair you're picking at the table.
It's funny, too, because I think, like you said with the girl thing, I think it's a subconscious thing. Like you don't even think about it anymore. You know, it's like you park under the lights, you look in the back seat, you check your sides and your rear view, and then you exit the vehicle. It's because that's how you were programmed. You were taught that this is going to keep you safe. And the same with us. It's you know,
approach a blind corner.
You know, you're looking around, a little peek, and you know, you want to see everything. You want to see movement. You know the exits. It's just about vigilance, hypervigilance, I guess they call it. You know, and after you've experienced combat and being shot at on a daily basis, which is no bueno, these little things become normal because it's like that's what kept you alive. Well, at least in your mind, that's what kept you alive. So you continue those things even though you don't think about it. You know, like I'm the same as Benny. I go to the restaurant and I sit with my back to the corner and I can see the exits. I can count how many people. I can sit down and know how many people are in front of me. I don't think about it. It's just something that I just do.
You red cell scenario it. You know, like if a gunman walks in.
How am I, where am I going? What am I doing?
Yeah.
You're
like
vigilant
who are the
all the
possible
time.
threats?
Yeah.
You know, who am I going to save?
Which way am I moving? How am I going here? How am I getting my girl to move from here to here?
Yeah.
The process it's always there because it's just how you've always been trained to think. It's kind of stupid, but
well, I'm the daughter of a firefighter, right? So I know where the exits are.
Right.
Just because that was always something that we looked at when we were kids growing up. It was, how would you get out of the house? How would you, if you can't go through that door, how would you get through that door? Or how are you going to get out of this building? And, these are things that you learn based on your upbringing and based on your own life experience. And so I think for you guys,
it shapes who you are.
Yeah. So you touched on the business a little bit, Scruff, and obviously we talked about you playing the bagpipes at my wedding. I think when it comes to things like weddings, which obviously are a little bit difficult to have a nice big, giant wedding like you'd like, and I think unfortunately, funerals have become something that is difficult. We talk about it in Cocktails in the War Room all the time about being able to mourn people properly because of the limits in the funeral homes and in the churches and really having a difficult time being able to get the big families together and to be able to go through the mourning process. I think it's something that people always wonder, well, how do you get a bagpiper at your wedding, or how do you get a bagpiper at your funeral? And that's something that you've done all along and started a business. And so I want to give you the chance to kind of talk about what it is that you do, and if people wanted to hire you for something like that, how they could do that.
So like I said, after I left the Murphys, I started the business maybe 6 or 8 months afterwards, because I wanted to keep playing. I still want to be able to help people musically in whatever sense I can. So, like you said, piping has always been a part of either you're really, really up or you're really, really down. So, weddings and funerals, that sort of thing. So, started a business. J.L. Wallace's Bagpipe Services. It's I have a website, scruffywallace.com. You can go to gigmasters.com. That's a hired musician type site. I'm on there under I think it's just under J.L. Wallace. I can't remember. J.L. Wallace, I think. But they, people go online. They're like, I have a funeral. The departed. I live within a 50-mile radius of Boston, and then they asked me to. Oh yeah, there's the card.
Go that way.
Oh, which way?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Now I can read the whole thing. Yeah. So it's scruffywallace.com and bagpipeservices 617@gmail.com if people want to email you.
Yep. And then 617-420-2531 is my direct line. And then on Gigmasters, like I said, that's another website where you hire musicians. And again, too, within the city of Boston, a lot of guys that I know who play come from the Boston Gaelic, from the Boston Fire. We kind of, we're a very tight-knit little group. We always kind of spread the word around, too, if there's pipers are requested or needed or whatever. But like I said, usually I'll go out. Yesterday I played a funeral in West Roxbury for Gormley Funeral Home. So when you go out for these services, usually the funeral directors will ask you for a card, or hey, can you come around again or whatever, and then you just kind of starts to grow. I work for the Delaney home a lot in Walpole, so that that's kind of far from my house, but South Shore, North Shore, anywhere in the Massachusetts, like Western Mass, even I've gone to Worcester, Springfield.
Worcester is not Western Mass.
Yes, it is. Stop it, you.
There be dragons out there.
Are you? You're west of Boston, so Worcester is Western Mass.
Outside the Beltway is another country.
There's like trees and stuff and random cats.
One of the things
furniture out there or something.
One of the things I want to ask you guys is that one of the traditions when it comes to bagpiping is the kilt and the uniform and the tartan. And so can you break down what people might not know about what the different things on your uniform mean, and obviously where it is that you go about finding out what your tartan is?
Okay, so tartan is, usually it was an identifier in Scotland for your family. It usually refers to your last name or your clan. A clan is your people, your family. That would be your clan. Then there are also things called sects, which are SECT, which is a subdivision of a clan. So let's say your name was Wallace, right? And then you had Schuster would be a sub part of that family, so that they would have their own identifier. So the tartan comes from the different families, different clans back in Scotland. Other parts of the uniform, like skin-do, that's a little knife that goes in the hose or the sock, if you want to call it.
Sporin covers your balls.
Yeah, Sporin is your little man purse. That's a little man purse.
It's the coin purse.
Yeah, or a flask holder, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, that too.
So different parts of the uniform, but a lot of the times the biggest question on people's minds is, what do we wear under our kilts? My usual answer is socks and shoes. Unless you're kind of being a ball breaker, then I'll be like, well, your girlfriend or your mother's lipstick. Yeah. Depending. But it's funny because as far as I know, that was a regimental thing, and I guess it was Queen Victoria was doing an inspection of a Highland regiment, and guys were very hot, and they would pull their kilts up, and they had their underwears on, and so it was made because they were doing that that they weren't allowed to wear underwear anymore, so that they wouldn't pull the apron or the front part of the kilt up anymore. So that's how we get the no underwear wearing thing. Leave it to the Scots, right?
Yeah.
Men wearing skirts and then take the panties off.
I was always told to wear no underwear. So
as was I. Even in the regiment in the Highlanders, we never wore underwear. But
it's tough in the winter, but it's good in the summer.
It's not bad in the winter. You wear wool, or like a winter kilt
if the wind blows.
But there's a guy,
Icy.
a very good friend of mine, Rocky Roger. He owns a company called USA Kilts. You can find him at usakilts.com. He's my kilt maker. I have a Scruffy Wallace tartan, and I actually wore it at your wedding with my Highlander uniform from back home. That is one that I registered myself when I was in the band with the Murphys. I made another tartan for the Dropkick Murphys as well, which is also registered in Scotland. So there are different ones. There's a Marine Corps tartan. There's an Army tartan.
I have the Marine Corps tartan.
I'm sure, Carrie, if I designed a tartan for you, it would be based in purple. Maybe some grays in there or something. I don't know. But yeah, so I mean, a uniform for street and parade is a little different than what we'd wear on stage. So I would wear usually a kilt with a cut-off shirt on stage because you get very hot and sweaty. So obviously you're not going to do that at a funeral. So parts of the uniform are all, but the one common thing is the kilt. That doesn't really change, just depending on what you wear underneath of it. That's all.
So what is the plan with the new band now? The Shadows of Boston. What is the plan with the band? I know you guys have a Facebook page up and you guys are starting to talk online about plans for the band, but what about the music? When can people hear it? Obviously, we're operating in a time of COVID where coming to see the band is going to be difficult, at least in the short term. So what are you guys doing?
So our plan right now is we've been writing. And as far as it goes right now, we have a couple of songs together. We don't want to release anything yet until we can really get it sounding perfect. So we want to go into the studio and record. So right now we're just in the process of writing. We have about 4 or 5 really solid tracks that everyone's very excited about, and we have a plethora behind it of kind of ideas that we're kind of brainstorming together. Like I said, we have 7 guys in this band. A
lot of instruments, different instruments.
We got mandolins, bagpipes, Ilian pipes, tin whistles, accordions, hurdy-gurdies, guitars, drums, your mother's sink. Like, we got everything in this band, So it's gonna be really, really cool. There's a lot of cool sounds, and it's got that real, melodic, brash Boston sound. It's born in Irish music, but there's also like hardcore numbers and fast rock numbers, and it's a mashup of all of our personalities together, and I think it's going to be something really cool.
People that love music have seen footage of recording studios, obviously, and you see the singer in the little vocal booth with just a microphone in the little padded room, and you see footage of the drummer behind the piece of plexiglass with all the microphones over the drum set, or the guitar player in there with the headphones on. How do you go about recording bagpipes in a recording studio? Where do you even put the microphone?
57s usually we use,
out front,
and usually in a closet.
The back. I've been trying to microphone bagpipes in a live setting for the last, not recording studio, but in a live setting for the last 25 years. And I actually developed a system where I put it's called a piezo microphone. It's actually used for clarinets. And I drill it inside the chamber just above where the reed is. And it picks up that, and then with the combination of a frontal mic and that, it actually, through an effects processor, it actually gives you a nice even sound. So I hope to be using that on stage with these guys and with the Shadows. So we'll see how that goes.
So we'll keep our eyes on the Shadows of Boston Facebook page, and
you'll be the first one to know once we get this stuff together. I'll be sending it out we'll hope to have an EP by like February. I think we're going to go in the studio. So, like I said, we have 4 or 5 solid tracks right now that we're going to really, really focus on and get them squared and then recorded. And once we have that, you'll be the first person to get them. And you can corrupt everyone else's ears with Shadows of Boston's once we got them done.
Well, you'll have plenty of time because obviously going into the winter here in Boston, I know one of the other things that you do to bide your time, especially with your brothers in the club, is ride motorcycles. And it's something that a lot of veterans do. When they get home, they get on motorcycles, and there's so many different veterans motorcycle clubs. And it's another way, like what you guys were talking about, to have that brotherhood and that camaraderie with like-minded people that understand you and understand what you've done. And now that we're getting into the winter, you're not going to be able to ride very much, so you have no excuse why you don't get this music done over the winter.
Get to work.
We've had the whip being cracked at our backs for like the last month. So, like I said, we're all really excited about it, and I think for the 7 of us, it's so exciting that we're able to get together and we just all kind of gel together, and this music's just sort of organically coming out of us. It's great. So
I've been wanting to play with him for years.
Well, don't tell them. Play with me on the band level. Yeah. Wink, wink.
Well, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today and talking about all of this stuff.
Carrie, it's always a pleasure.
Because you have the Pipe and Whistle, which is the pub that you have at home. I have the War Room, obviously. So I'm going to make you promise that after the podcast episode comes out, that I bring you guys in for cocktails in the War Room some Tuesday night, and we can have a celebratory drink, me in my War Room with everybody, and you guys in the Pipe and Whistle, and we'll do an after-action report after the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll bring in some acoustic instruments. We'll jam out a little bit.
Looking forward.
Would you guys do that, really?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm going to hold you guys to that. Maybe before Christmas.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of surprises, a lot of curveballs we're going to throw with this band. It's going to be acoustic music. It's going to be music to punch you in the face, music you want to make babies to. All of it. All of it.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we'll do that for like our big Christmas episode before the holiday or something. We'll bring you guys into the War Room and we'll have you guys play.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Look forward to it.
We'll start working on a Christmas song for you.
Yeah, do that now, and we'll set a date to get you guys in the War Room. That would be awesome. I think everybody would love it.
Easy peasy.
Cool.
All right, guys, it was good to see you.
Carrie, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, there they are, Scruffy Wallace and Denny Upton from the Shadows of Boston. You probably know more about how to play the bagpipes and how to wear a kilt than you ever thought you were going to. But I thought it was really interesting. I love their perspective on music and how it helps our combat veterans. And I know 2021 is going to be a huge year for the band. Keep tabs on what they got going on. The links for the band and Scruffy's links are in the show notes, as is the corresponding playlist, which is a little bit of everything. A little punk, a little metal, a little Zeppelin. I want to thank Digital Federal Credit Union at dcu.org and Latini Creative Solutions at latinicreative.com for sponsoring this week's episode. Don't forget, with the holidays coming up, if you want me to make a custom Cameo video, I would love to do that. And also, you can get a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass. The links for those in the show notes as well. If you liked what you heard, click subscribe so you don't miss anything, including Monday through Friday. Get a situation report every weekday. And if you don't mind leaving a 5-star review and a comment, that would be much appreciated. And I will meet you on Tuesday night at 8:30 live on my Facebook page for Cocktails in the War Room.
To celebrate joining Pantheon Podcasts, Rock Camp, the podcast, the official podcast of Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, is giving away a guitar signed by Mike Portnoy of Dream Theater, Marty Friedman, formerly of Megadeth, and legendary shredder Zakk Wylde, plus our rockstar counselors like Vinny Appice, Monty Pittman, and more. To enter to win, simply follow, rate, and review our podcast on your preferred platform, and that's all you have to do. For more information, go to rockcamp.com/podcast.